Hi everyone, welcome to my channel UI Universe. I'm Iman from Lahore, Pakistan. We are going to continue our booking apps UI and UX. In this video, we are going to build browse by property type and all-inclusive section. Using React and Tailwind CSS, we are going to wrap it up with slider on the browse section and amazing transition effect on the all-inclusive section. For browse section, we have a heading called browse by property type and a paragraph that says search on which type of property you want. For properties, we have hotels, apartments, resorts, cabins, and villas with their corresponding image type and how many properties there are of that type. And we have a transition effect, that is when we hover, the image will scale down. And it's completely responsive. By default, we will show two cards with a carousel or slider, and we will scroll two cards at a time. On small screens, we will show three cards and scroll two cards. On larger screens, we will show four cards and scroll one card. And on large screens and above, we will show 5 cards without slider because we don't need it. For our slider, we will use a package called React Slick, which we have already used for the home guest love section. For the all-inclusive section, we have a heading called all-inclusive and a paragraph that says hotels that offers everything you need. It's yoga need. Let's correct it. Hotels that offers everything you need. After that, we have image of the hotel with their corresponding name and location, and when we hover on the card, its star rating will be displayed with a nice and smooth transition effect. As you can see, now that we understand what we are going to build, let's get started. Open up the project we were working on in Visual Studio Code, and inside components, let's create a new file called browse section.jsx. Let's create a component and export it. Const browse section, arrow function, return statement, and inside let's have a simple div in which we have a text called browse section. Let's export default our browse section component. Export default browse section. Save it and let's import it inside app.jsx. After the guest card component, we import browse section from ./components/browse section. In here we have rendered router, routes, and a separate route for each page, all of which we imported from React Router DOM. For the home page, we have rendered home, guest card, and browse section components inside layout. Let's save it. If we go to layout file component, in here we destructure children as a prop, which are the components that we passed to the layout component, and the navbar, hero, search bar, and footer are the components that we are going to have in each page, and we display the children components in here. Now let's open up our terminal, and in here go to the booking folder, cd booking, and say npm run dev. It will start a local server on port localhost 5173. If we control and click on it, we are directed to our port. And in here, as you can see, our browse section text is here. Let's close the layout and app file and remove this text. First, we will create the structure of our section and then we will style it. So inside this div we have a children div in which we have a heading and a paragraph. So h1 and the text is browse by property type, and after this h1 we have a paragraph that says search on which type of property you want. After that we need images with their type and properties. Because we are only building the front end, we will use dummy data. I have created a new file called data.json inside data folder. Inside data.json file, I had stored data for two separate sections. First we have curly braces, and inside for browse by type, if we expand it, since we need multiple hotels data, we had stored it in an array and assign it to, you can say, a variable, and for each object we have a ID with its value, a type, properties and image URL. And for all inclusive section, since we need multiple hotels data, we had stored it in separate objects, and for each object we have an ID, name, location, star rating and image URL, and we separate both of them with a comma. So that's it for data.json. You can find this data inside my GitHub repository. I will provide the link in the video description. Let me close it, and after this children div we will have curly braces, and let's import the data.json file. Import data from dot slash data, like this. So we say here data dot, as we import all data from data.json, it's data.json. As we import all the data from data.json file as data variable that holds the contents of imported JSON file. So data dot browse by type to access the browse data particularly, and we will use map method on browse by type, and for each item we will display this div. That will include an image, a heading and a paragraph. So inside this div, let's have an image tag and a source. We will have a source in curly braces, and inside we will say item dot image URL. And for whatever property you use, make sure its spell is similar to the property that you are using. Curly braces allow you to embed JavaScript expressions inside JSX or HTML-like syntax. In this case, item.imageURL in curly braces is a JavaScript expression that dynamically provides the image source. Without the curly braces, React would treat it as a plain string rather than evaluating item.imageURL. So after this source, we have old. So when, for example, we have slow network, the image will take time to reload. So instead of the image, this text will be displayed. So in here we can simply say, let's use item.type, so that user would know which type of property it is. And after this we will have a h2, and inside we will display item.type. And after this h2 we have a paragraph that says item.properties. So how many properties there will be, and a properties text. Properties. Let's save it and see if our information is there. Okay, so we have some error from source components browse section.jsx. Maybe we have misspelled the path, so let's remove it. and we can see, so this is the file data/data.json. Let's save it. Okay, so our data is here. This is our heading, paragraph, and our image and its information. Okay, so we have all the information for our browse section. Now we are going to unleash the power of styling. Let's go. Let me introduce you to Retro UI, a retro-styled React UI library designed to help you build modern, unique web applications with ease. Powered by React and Tailwind CSS, Retro UI offers beautifully crafted, flexible components that can be fully customized to match your design needs. Just follow the installation steps, import components that you need, and enhance them further with Tailwind CSS for the perfect look. And if you are looking to elevate your design workflow, Retro UI Pro is where the magic happens. Retro UI Pro offers an incredible set of premium features that take customization to the next level. With premium UI blocks, ready to use templates, a Figma UI kit, and lifetime updates, all for a one-time payment of $99. It's a must-have for developers and designers aiming for efficiency and style. Check it out, the link is in the video description. For styling, we will use Tailwind CSS. To be able to use Tailwind CSS, you first need to install and configure it, which I have already done so in the first video of this series. You can style any element by putting class name attribute and then you can style it. For our parent div, empty10 will give margin on the top of the section by 25 rem or 40 pixels, and after this we will say space y5. Space y5 will give space on the y-axis, so between the children div. For this div we don't need any styles. If we remove it and save it, as you can see, the space y class will be applied to the h1p and this div, and if we undo it, Ctrl Z, it's in a div now, and the space class name will be applied to only both div since they are direct children element. For the h1, text to XL will make the text large by 2XL. Font bold will make the text bold. Text black will change the color of our heading to black, and /90 will lower the opacity of the color. If we say here 70, as you can see, but we only need 19 here, like this. And for the paragraph, we will say text LG will make the text larger. For this div, we forgot to add a key. Whenever we are using map method, we need to add a key that is unique, which in our case is item.id. For the class name, width 60 and height of 44, which we hover on it, it is 15 rem or 240 pixel, and for the height 44, it's 11 rem or 176 pixel. Let's save it. As you can see, after that we will say object cover, which I will explain in a while, and for this image we will say width full and height full. If we hover on it, as you can see, width is 100% and height is also 100%. And after this, we will say border to give border to our image like this. Let's give a color to it. Border gray 600 like this and round it empty to make our image rounded, and object cover makes sure the image fills the entire width and height of its parent container without distortion. The width is 60 and height is 44 of the container. Our image inside it will adjust to fully cover that space while keeping its aspect ratio. Any part of the image that doesn't fit will be clipped rather than resized disproportionately. Cursor pointer. So when we hover on the image, our cursor will turn into pointer. For the H2, font bold to make our text bold, text LG to make the text larger, and cursor pointer. So when we hover on it, our cursor will turn into pointer. For the paragraph, we will say text base. Our text is not showing. When we will apply carousel or slider, our text will be displayed. Now let's add carousel or slider to the browse section. We will use the React Slick npm package, which exports a React carousel component. First install the package, but since we already installed it and used in home guests love section, we don't need to install it. Let's import the CSS files. Slick.css, and slick-theme.css. Also import slider. Import slider from React-Slick. Now we will wrap our cards with the slider component. So before this map, now let's add some configurations to make it look good. So before the return statement, let's create a variable called settings. And in here, if you want these dots, you can say dots to true. But in this section, I don't think it's necessary. Let's pass this variable to the slider. We will say what this means is maintain the other default configurations since we are not configuring every property React Slick gives us, and apply the ones we are changing. So back in here, let me change its setting a bit. Okay. Infinite, so when we come to the last card, we don't want to start from the first card again. So that's why we say here false. In which speed we want to scroll to the next card, let's say 500. Slides to show how many cards we want to show, let's say 5. And when we click arrows, how many we want to scroll. Since we only have 5 types, we don't need slider in bigger screens. Let's save it. As you can see, now we want our cards to be responsive. It's all explained in React Slick documentation. If you want to explore more, you can check out the documentation. So by default, we will show 2 cards on small screens, 3 cards on medium, 4 cards, and on larger, extra larger, and so on, we will show 5 cards. So after this, we will say responsive. add an array, and inside we will have different objects for each breakpoint. I will explain in a bit. Let's save. If you don't have gap between the card, so let's go to index.css. We did it in previous video while creating slider for guest section. So margin on y-axis will be 0 and x-axis the margin will be 10 pixels. So this class will be applied to this div containing the cards. So now if you save, the gap between the cards will be there. Now let me explain the breakpoints. If we right click and click on inspect and click on this icon, let's say in here responsive, until we reach the breakpoint of 650, two cards will be shown, and if we scroll, two cards will scroll. And from breakpoint 650 to until we reach 1000, and from breakpoint 650 to until we reach 1000, three cards will be shown and two cards will scroll. And from 1000 breakpoint to less than 1099, so 1098, four cards will be shown and one will scroll. And after that, whatever breakpoint it will be, this default of 5 cards to show will be applied. And since we don't have any card left, we don't need to scroll any. So for example in here, let's go to 2000 breakpoint. As you can see, our cards are completely responsive. And in here also, as you can see, now our arrows are not showing, but if you try to hover on the sides, we haven't applied to bigger screens, we haven't applied slider to bigger screens. Let's make it small. In here, if you try to hover on the sides, in here, as you can see, our cursor turns into pointer. So the arrows are actually there, but because of its styling, it's not visible. So in the previous video where we build home guest section, I had shown you two different ways to show our arrows. The first one is by using props and inline styling, and the second one is creating our own custom arrow. and styling it using Tailwind CSS. You can check it out if you want to know both ways, but now we will use second way and create our custom arrow. So before browse section component, we will create a function called next arrow. It will take in props, and in here we will say I will explain the code in a while, or I can just explain side by side. Yes. So on click equal prop. So the next arrow function will take props as an argument. We will use only the on click prop, since for styling we will use our custom one. The on click handler preserve the functionality of navigating through the carousel. And after this we will say return. We will have a div, and inside we will use React icon. To use React icons, open up the terminal, and first you need to say here Ctrl+C to close our server, and then install the React package by command npm install react icons, and after that you will be able to use it. So we have already installed it in previous section, and in here we will say I will use the icon. The spelling is quite large. I am using this one. You can choose the one you like from React Slick. You can just Google it, and let me show it. If we search React icon, in here you can search arrow. You can use the one you like. Let's style it. So on this tab we will say class name to apply absolute positioning to our arrow. So right now it's not showing. So after this slides to show, we will say, since we are building next arrow, we will say in here next arrow and pass our function to it, the one we have created. So next arrow, like this, and after that make sure to add a comma and save it. It's not showing. Let's check in console if we have any error. Oh, we forgot to import our arrow from React icons, so let's copy it and import ourselves. So after this we will say import, and inside curly braces we will paste it, and we will say from React icons /io, like this. Let's save it and refresh. So our arrow is gone. Let's see. Okay, so as you can see our arrow is here. Of course we need to style it. Let's first position it. So after absolute we will say right. These are Tailwind classes, but we need the custom one, so let's say in here -16 pixels. So as you can see it will go to opposite side by 16 pixels. Because we say in here minus, we will say top 40%. If we save, as you can see our arrow will go to top by 40%. Let's make the arrow a bit big in size, so we say here size, inside curly braces we will say 30. So as you can see our arrow is bigger, and after this we will say cursor pointer, because by default our arrow is not turning to pointer, so we need to define it ourselves, as you can see. And after this we will say text black, and on hover we will say text gray 700. If we hover, our arrow's color will be gray 700, as you can see. And if we click, our on click functionality will not work because we haven't provided the on click handler. So after this class name, inside this tab we will say on click and inside we will pass this onClick that we destructure from the props. So if we save it, as you can see, our arrow is working. Now let's do the same for previous arrow. So after this next arrow function, we will say in here function previous arrow. It will take props and we destructure onClick from props and we return our div in which we will have our icon. Let's paste it, and instead of right we will say in here left, and let's also import it. Change this to left, okay, and close it. Let's provide our arrow in here inside our settings variable. So we will say in here previous arrow, it should be camel case if it's correct, previous arrow, and we assign it to the function we created. So previous arrow like this and a comma. Let's save it. So this is our arrow. Now let's style it. Let's say absolute like this, and since it's the left arrow we will say in here by left and minus 16 pixels like this, and let's make our arrow bigger. So we will say size inside curly braces 30 like this, and after this we will say top 40% like this, and cursor pointer text black, and on hover text gray 400, no not 400, 700. Okay, as you can see, so our arrows are here. As you can see, by default we have shown 2 cards and we will scroll 2 cards. Oh, it's not working because we haven't provided the onClick attribute. So in here let's say onClick is onClick. Save it and let's click on it. As you can see, by default we will show 2 cards and scroll 2, and on smaller screens we will show 2 cards and scroll 2 cards like this, and on medium screens we will show 3 cards and scroll 2 cards, and on larger screens, let's refresh, we will show 4 cards and scroll 1 card, and on 2 Excel screens and above we will show 5 cards, as you can see. Now let's add a little transition effect. So in here on the image we will say, so when we hover on our image will scale down to 95. Let's save it, as you can see. But as you can see, the transition is not very smooth. So in here we will add a property called transition. And now when we hover on it, as you can see, our transition is much smooth and clean. Okay, so that's it for browse section. Now next, we will build the all-inclusive section. And for the inclusive section, we will not use the slider because we will only have 2 cards. There are also many more properties, like if you want to show the dots or you need infinite scroll. So when we come to the last card, we will start from first again. You can explore it in React Slick documentation, and configure them according to your needs. Now let's build our all-inclusive section. So inside the components folder, we will create a new file called all-inclusive.jsx. Let's create a function called inclusive section. It will be an arrow function and we will have a return statement. Let's first create the structure of our section and then we will style it. So we will have a parent div in which we have two children divs. The first one will contain the heading and paragraph and the second one will contain our image. So let's create children div in which we have a heading called all inclusive. Let's export it. Export default. When we export default this function, it will show that the inclusive section is the main function and we will import it inside app.jsx. For the home page, since we are showing these components in the home page, so after this browse section we will say all inclusive. So the name of our component is inclusive section. Make sure you spell it right. Inclusive section, this one. Let's save it. So our heading is here. Let's close it. And after this heading we will have a paragraph. For the paragraph we will say hotel stat offers everything you need. And after this children div we will have another children div. Inside we will use map function. So first we need data from data.json. Let's import it. At the top of the file we will say import data from data/data.json. Okay, and in here we will say data.allinclusive. So we are specifically fetching the inclusive section data. If we go to data.json file, so this is the browse by type and this is the all inclusive. We are fetching the all inclusive one. So after this we will say map method, and for each item we will display this div. Because we are using map method, we need to define a key. So key should be unique, so our ID is unique. And inside this div we will have another div and inside we will have our image. For the source we will say item.image URL. Because we are fetching from item, for the source we will show the item that's currently mapping. We will show its image, not images. In here we will say image URL and we will say in here alt. Let's just say here image. And after this image we will have a span in which we have star rating. So inside this span we will use array.from method. I will explain it in a while. I have explained it in detail in previous video. I will provide the link to it in description, but let me explain it again. Array.from is a method in JavaScript used to create a new array instance from an iterable object. For example, strings, sets, or array-like object. Like the argument object, we are using array.from to create an array based on an object. Inside it, for the length we have passed item.starRating. First we will check if the item exists, then we will fetch its star rating. This item.starRating is the value we are working with, defines the length of the array that we want to create. It's representing the number of stars for a hotel's rating. After creating an array, we immediately chain map method on it to iterate over each element of the array, which allows transformation on the elements while creating the array. The map method assigns each element to display a star component. In the map function, we have two arguments, but since we are not using the first one, we just say here underscore. If we skip this underscore, we will have an error. Let me show the error to you. Let's remove it, and if we open up the console, this is the error we are getting. Each child in a list should have a unique key prop. Let's undo it, and if we refresh, as you can see, the error is gone. We are using the index of the array as the key for the stars to ensure that each element has a unique identifier. For each item in the array, we render an AI fill star component. Inside data.json, let's change the star rating to, let's say, 8. Our code will dynamically render 8 stars by creating a corresponding array and mapping over it. Let's undo it. Now after this div in which we have image and span, we will have a h3. Inside we will have item.name, and after that we have a paragraph in which we will display item.location. Let's save it. Okay, so our information is here. Now let's style our section. For this top div, margin on y-axis will be 10. So between our browse section and all-inclusive section and space y5. So we have some space between this div and this card div. For this div, we don't need any styles. Let's style our heading text 2XL to make the text larger by 2XL, font bold to make the text bold, text black, so the color of our text will be black, and /90 to reduce its opacity. For the paragraph, text LG to make the text larger like this. So after that, let's style our card div. So class name flex so that our cards will come in one line, and we give here gap of 5. Now let's style this div. We will say width 56 and height 56. Relative, because we need absolute class on the child element, so it will be relative to its parent, that is this element. And group, to group all the elements. Overflow hidden, whatever will overflow from the div, we will hide it. Object cover to fit the aspect ratio. For this div, we don't need to style it. We define this div so our image and span will have a separate parent. Let's style the image. Object cover to fit the aspect ratio of the container containing it, which is this div. Oh, I misspell it. And let's give border. Let's change its color to border gray 600. Like this. Rounded MD. and cursor pointer. So when we hover on it, our cursor will turn into pointer. And for this span, let's say flex, so our stars will come in one line as you can see, and absolute, so it will be relative to its parent. As you can see, we have provided the relative class to our parent and we have used absolute in the child. And after this, let's position it first. We will say top dash 2. Top 2 will position the stars to top with a gap of 2 and right is 2. Right 2 will position the stars to right side with a gap of 2. Now we will add a little transition effect. First we will say transition all and we will translate our stars on x-axis by 32. So it will be somewhere in here and this card star will be somewhere in here. So after this we will say duration of 700. So how much time our transition will take, and when we hover we will say group hover minus translate on x-axis 2. So we have used group on the parent to group all the elements. So when we hover anywhere on the whole card, the class name we provide in the child element will be applied to the whole div. And on the child we say group hover. So when we hover on this grouped element, so our whole div, our stars will translate themselves to the right side. As you can see, it's really smooth and clean. So by default our stars will be 32 on x-axis, but when we hover on it, it will come on the opposite direction on x-axis by 2. Now let's style our name and location. For the name we will say font bold. To make the text bold, tracking tight, so the spacing between the letters will decrease like this. Text LG to make our text a bit big, and cursor pointer like this. And for our location we will say text empty. So it's the default property. Now let's see, we don't need to make it responsive since we have only 2 cards. So as you can see, so that's it for all inclusive section, and both of our section are completely responsive as you can see. Now let's push our code to the GitHub. We can go to our source control by this icon, or you can click Ctrl plus Shift plus G command. And if we go in here, first we have to stage all changes by clicking on this plus icon. Now let's write a message. For the message we can say creating browse and inclusive section, and if we click on this commit button, after that we have to click on sync changes button. This action will pull and push commits. Let's click on OK. So our changes are made, and if we go to GitHub and refresh our page, as you can see our latest commit is here, creating browse and inclusive section. If you want to know more about GitHub or how to create a repository, I have created a separate video on that. I will provide the link to it in the video description. So that's it for today's video. If you like this video, click on the like button, press the bell icon to get notifications, comment, share and subscribe to UI Universe. Until next time, take care. Bye bye.